I'm going to use the old lady's room, Cho said with a nasty smirk. Her expression filled me with intense disgust. The lousy daughter-in-law should live in the shed. My in-laws agreed with Chloe and started to drive me out. I thought we got along well, but in the end, they sided with her. Seeing them share Chloe's repulsive smile wiped away any familial affection I had. Instead, a strong anger surged within me. "All right, I'll do as you wish," I responded, much to the delight of Chloe and my in-laws. Turning my back on them, I left the house with just my essentials. They needed a lesson to be brought down a notch. The only one I still cared about was Grace, who had always been concerned about me. Sometime later, I received a frantic call from my in-laws on my cell phone. It was answered by my husband, James. "What the heck is going on?" Chloe's shrieking voice was the first thing I heard. "Our house is gone, turned into an empty lot. I'm Anna. I'm a 46-year-old homemaker. I grew up in the foster system after losing my parents in a car accident when I was very young. With no grandparents and no relatives to take me in, I ended up in foster care. Growing up there, I sometimes faced harassment at school, so I didn't have many close friends. Despite that, I had friends in the foster system. The older ones taught me a lot, and the younger ones adored me. Just having them was enough to make me happy. After graduating high school, I got a job without being adopted. My school experiences made me shy away from social interactions, so I immersed myself in work. Then I met someone, the first person outside the system to acknowledge me. "You work hard every day. Thanks to your diligent work, our jobs are easier." "Oh, thank you," I replied. That was James, who is now my husband. He appreciated my work and often complimented me. Gradually, we started talking personally, and when I shared my dream with him, he said he wanted to support and help me. With his encouragement, I worked hard towards achieving my dream. After a few years as a working adult, I managed to fulfill my dream. "Would you like to go out with me?" he asked. "If that's okay," I replied. He then confessed his feelings for me. I was drawn to his kindness and how he had supported my dream, so I accepted his proposal. "Thank you, but there's something I need to tell you," he said. I learned that James was divorced and had a daughter. While dating him, I got to meet his daughter, Chloe. Chloe had a sweet face and was always smiling. "Be my mom, big sis," she'd say to me. After we met a few times, I decided to become her mother. My main concern was James's parents. Coming from a foster home, I worried they might have a bad impression of me, thinking I was poorly raised or lacked parental love. I feared they might not approve of our marriage. "What a lovely young lady," they said. "Ah, what a wonderful woman you are. Please take good care of James and Chloe." Despite my worries, James's parents welcomed me warmly. I was sure we could build a beautiful family together. I truly believed that until we got married. Not long after our wedding, I got pregnant with our son, Ethan. I thought we'd have a happy life forever and be able to overcome any challenge. That was until I saw their true colors. "Hey, Auntie, give me some money," Chloe demanded. "I already gave you your allowance last week," I replied. "That's not nearly enough," she retorted. The sweet young Chloe I knew had grown into a completely different person. She hardly went to high school, skipping classes to hang out somewhere every day, and she always seemed to be asking for money. "What do you need it for?" "Explain that first, then I'll decide whether to give you more. And the school called, you need to attend regularly." "Shut up, you're not my real mom, so stop butting in," Chloe snapped. I was momentarily stunned. It was true, I wasn't her biological mother, but I had always tried to be a mother to her. "Chloe, that's no way to speak to Anna. She's been a real mother to you, blood or not," James scolded her, standing up for me. Whatever, I'm out of here. Cho huffed and probably headed to her grandparents' place. I'll call my parents. Just leave her be, James said, as Chloe stormed out of the house. We knew where she was going. It was her grandparents' house, just a short walk away. Mom, Chloe's probably coming over. Please don't coddle her and send her back. James called his parents, but they were doting and indulgent, never listening to him. Poor Chloe, abandoned by her birth mom. At least we should be on her side, they always said, giving in to her demands. It wasn't like this when I first remarried. Back then, they maintained a reasonable distance, occasionally playing with Chloe. They were just normal grandparents. But their overindulgence started when Ethan was born. Grandpa and Grandma probably don't like me, Ethan noticed, seeing the favoritism towards his sister. Despite being James's child and their grandchild, they always favored Chloe, saying poor Chloe and indulging her with whatever she wanted, from birthday presents to Christmas gifts. Ethan is my child too. If you keep upsetting him like this, I won't support you anymore, James angrily told his parents, prompting them to treat Ethan more equally. They reluctantly complied on the surface. I couldn't understand their obsession with Chloe. It was probably because of Chloe's biological mother, James's ex-wife. James's first wife was a beautiful woman, a childhood friend, and his parents' favorite. I'd heard a lot about her. Even James described her as a bitter memory. Back then, he wasn't interested in romance and saw her as just a close friend. However, with encouragement from those around them and her strong advances, they started dating. She got pregnant while in college, so they married because his parents said he had to take responsibility. But she was unfaithful. After getting pregnant and dropping out of college, she disappeared, leaving behind baby Chloe. James quickly found out she had moved in with a wealthy man. She settled alimony and child support in one payment, and they divorced. I do feel sorry for her, but coddling her isn't helping, I said. James nodded. I understand how you feel, Anna, and you're truly right. Despite the circumstances, I felt sympathy for Chloe. I was determined to be a real mother to her. But after remarrying, she became hostile, especially when I was pregnant with Ethan. There was an incident where she tried to push me down the stairs. Luckily, James was nearby and saved me. Chloe is becoming more like my ex-wife as she grows. James often sighed, deeply troubled by her behavior. You're not at fault. You're a good father to both Chloe and Ethan. I would console him, though we both wondered what to do. Moving due to James's job was difficult, and separating Chloe from her grandparents seemed impossible. What's wrong? Ethan asked, noticing our worry. Nothing, we hastily replied, focusing on him. That day, Chloe stayed at her grandparents' and didn't come home. Time passed, and on the day she graduated high school, she suddenly announced, I'm moving out. James and I were shocked. Why all of a sudden? I asked. I'm pregnant, so I'm leaving, she said. James's expression turned to anger, reminded of his ex-wife. Chloe, I told you not to turn out like her, like your mother. Shut up. What I do is my business, Chloe retorted. Fine, if you want to be that way, then leave. I disown you. Don't ever call yourself my daughter again, James shouted. I told you I would do that from the beginning, Chloe replied coolly and left. She could leave so easily because her grandparents had provided financial support. Didn't I tell you not to spoil Chloe and give her money after she messed up? What were you thinking? James stormed over to his parents' place, angry about their actions. After I calmed things down, Ethan looked at his grandparents intently. Chloe turned out this way because Grandpa and Grandma spoiled her. If you both really cared about her, you should have stopped, Ethan said. He didn't have a good relationship with Chloe. He admired her as a sister when he was younger, but soon realized her true nature and distanced himself. Chloe continued to call Ethan a gloomy idiot, which only motivated him to focus on his studies. Despite being a grade schooler, he had very mature thoughts. "I'm glad my grandparents disliked me. It made me a better person," he said. His grandparents were shocked. They never imagined Ethan was aware of their dislike, let alone that he would be glad about it. "We're sorry. We were wrong." They apologized sincerely. They regretted spoiling Cho too much, thinking they were helping a poor child. "You're too late in realizing that," Ethan said, asserting his maturity. I tried to calm him while patting his head, but he said, "Stop it. I'm not a kid anymore." Ethan might have taken after James, being straightforward and stern with his grandparents. Seeing Ethan's growth eased our frustration with Cho. The grandparents later changed their behavior, maintaining a reasonable distance while occasionally sending gifts. This could mend our relationship in time. "Anna, you're kind," James said, slightly embarrassed. They were among the few people outside the foster system who accepted me, so I wanted to believe in them. James seemed thoughtful as I explained this. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," James replied, smiling kindly. We continued to live a peaceful life, maintaining a suitable distance from the grandparents. Ethan grew up and became interested in our work. "I want to do the same job as you and Dad," he said. We supported his dream and ever studious. Ethan would sometimes seek our guidance. Each time, we would teach him, and as he grew, so did his understanding. Meanwhile, Cho had cut off contact after receiving money from the grandparents. We decided to leave her be, not knowing where she was. Am I being heartless? I wondered. Not at all. You did enough, Mom, James and Ethan assured me. I smiled and thanked them, but I still wondered. I looked at an old photo of Cho smiling brightly. Why did it turn out this way? I whispered. It was time to focus on Ethan's future. It took me years, but I finally managed to move on. Years passed and Ethan, once a grade schooler, became a college student. "I'm thinking about becoming independent and living near my college," he said. He started living alone. We visited him occasionally, seeing him struggle with chores but trying his best. "Anna, can we talk about something?" James asked one day, right after Ethan moved out. Apparently, his parents' house was deteriorating and needed repairs soon. The renovation would be costly, too much for his parents to handle alone. "Why don't we live together?" I suggested. "Really? Are you sure?" he asked. "Yes, as long as you're okay with it," I replied. By then, our relationship with his parents had improved. We decided to buy a two-family home with completely separate living areas. "Thank you for suggesting we live together, Anna. We'll make sure not to bother you," they promised. True to their word, they never interfered and always called before coming over. Our interactions were limited to occasional shared meals and food exchanges. We continued to maintain a healthy distance. Then one day, James had to go on a long business trip abroad. "Call me anytime. Don't hesitate just because they're my parents," he said. "Don't worry, I'll be fine," I reassured him. Indeed, our relationship with his parents remained unchanged, each respecting the other's space. Perhaps my busier work schedule and later homecomings played a part. A month passed, and James settled into his work abroad. Then unexpectedly, Cho showed up at our house with 4 children in tow. "It's been a while, Cho," I said, shocked by the sudden turn of events. My in-laws welcomed her with smiles. I later found out they had been in touch with Cho even after she left. "I'm going to live here with these kids from today," Cho declared abruptly. It was a situation I couldn't immediately accept. However, Cho, having divorced and led a troubled life during her student years, had no one else to turn to except her grandparents. The youngest child was still a baby, so for the time being, we decided to let them stay on the parents' side of the house. "What? She just left on her own, and now she comes back without Anna's permission." I immediately informed James about Cho's return. He was furious and said he'd come back right away, but being overseas and due to work commitments, it wasn't easy for him to return immediately. "It's okay for now. They're staying on the parents' side, and if anything happens, I can ask Ethan for help. Yet, with Chloe's return, our once harmonious relationship was disrupted. Chloe continued her ways, leaving her children with the grandparents while she went out every day. Anna, can I ask you a favor? The elderly in-laws couldn't handle the young kids alone, so I switched to working from home and started looking after the children during work breaks. Gradually, it became a given for the in-laws to leave the children with me, eventually dropping them off at our side of the house whenever Chloe went out. I'm sorry for always being a bother. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll manage. For a while, as I have to work now, can you handle it alone? Yes, I'm fine. The others are napping, and I'll finish my homework. Fortunately, the eldest daughter, Grace, was a responsible and good kid who actively took care of her younger siblings. She helped with chores and always looked apologetic, making me feel sorry for her. It was my fault for always accepting the situation, but the real issue was Chloe leaving her children and going out. 1 minute, Chloe. What? I can hear you. No need to shout. One day, I decided to confront Chloe, who had returned home in the morning. You're a parent. Take care of your children properly. As usual, you're so nagging, and you're the one living here, so you should take better care of the household. Confused by her words, I tilted my head. Apparently, the in-laws had been complaining to Chloe about me not doing household chores or fulfilling my duties as a daughter-in-law. I turned to the in-laws, startled by Chloe's words. It's true, right? Absolutely. What kind of daughter-in-law stays in her room doing who knows what? I was dumbfounded, having never heard such complaints from them before. Chloe was arrested for causing a scene in the restaurant and assaulting a staff member. It also came out that she had been committing marriage fraud, leading on multiple boyfriends with promises of marriage, which led to a complaint being filed. Her father mentioned that her crimes had accumulated, making it possible for him to gain custody of the children. After moving to our new home, Chloe's ex-husband brought Grace and her siblings over to visit. That's how we learned about Chloe's situation. Grace seemed happy living with her father, which was a relief. Despite the in-laws repeatedly pleading for help, we hung up without a word. They were living in poverty after we cut off financial support, having spent too much on Chloe, and now burdened with compensating the restaurant. They were forced to work despite their old age. By the way, they even came to my college, Ethan mentioned. Were you okay? I asked, concerned. Yeah, I realized it quickly and called the police before they could approach me. The police took them away, Ethan replied calmly. I was relieved by how level-headed he was. Due to the incident, they also lost their part-time jobs and were pushed further into poverty. Unlike the in-laws, things were going great for us. My company was expanding rapidly overseas, and James and I were leading busy yet fulfilling lives. Oh, by the way, I've got a girlfriend. Can I bring her over to meet you? Ethan asked. The girl he brought was kind and sincere, the complete opposite of Chloe. Though I couldn't judge immediately, seeing them so happy together made me feel she might be right for Ethan. Hey, Anna, once work calms down, how about we go on a spa trip together? James suggested. That sounds lovely. I smiled and agreed. I worked hard, looking forward to our spa trip. Years passed and Ethan joined my company as my successor, working hard every day. His girlfriend, who said she wanted to be Ethan's right hand like her father-in-law, also joined our company. The two of them got married and lived nearby. Actually, she's from the same orphanage as Mom, Ethan revealed, which brought me and her closer. Today, the young couple is visiting, and I've prepared a special feast to welcome them. When she told us about their child, we were overwhelmed with joy. Chloe looked displeased and immediately asked, "What did you do with our house?" We were astounded. Does this girl have any sense of parental responsibility? The first thing you should be worried about is the kids, I said. Chloe fell silent for a moment, realizing she hadn't thought about them. Where are the kids? They're with their father now, I replied. How dare you do that without asking? She snapped, claiming the kids were hers and she couldn't get child support without them. You're the one being selfish, James yelled, drawing everyone's attention. I intended to raise you as if you were my own, even though you're not. I didn't want you to end up like my ex-wife. But in the end, you turned out just like her. What? Not blood-related? Chloe muttered in disbelief. Even her parents seemed shocked. Yes, Chloe, you're the child of my ex-wife and her lover, James revealed. That's a lie, she exclaimed. James explained that he took responsibility after being told to do so, raising Chloe out of pity and hoping she'd have a better life than her mother. But it was all in vain. Why didn't you tell us? The in-laws asked. Have you ever seriously listened to what I had to say? You always ignored my opinions, James replied coldly. No matter how much I told them not to spoil Chloe, they never changed. They tried to appear fair to Ethan only because James insisted. I remember the in-laws' behavior, I said. No matter what, they always favored Chloe and left the kids with me when they were busy. James continued, you said you accepted Anna being from an orphanage, but you probably never truly accepted her. To you, Chloe and her mother were always more important. You're right, the in-laws admitted, unable to meet our eyes. Chloe is yours now. Don't ever involve us again, I said. Same here. I have no intention of helping you, James added. I feel the same. I can't forgive you for betraying me, Ethan chimed in. We each expressed our final words, and the in-laws hung their heads. What's all this? It's all lies. There's no way she could pay off a mortgage. Chloe finally snapped out of her shock and glared at me. Oh, didn't I mention? I'm actually a CEO, I revealed. What? Indeed, I am a CEO. My dream was to own my own company, and I achieved it after saving money and working hard for several years. Anna was the first person I truly loved, so I wanted to follow her, James added. We built our business together, even expanding overseas. James's business trips were for leading our overseas branch, and Ethan was studying business to succeed me. That's a lie. You, a CEO? No way. Chloe stammered, clearly shaken. You never had any interest in Mom's work, did you? Ethan said coldly. His voice sounded just like James's, which I found oddly fitting. When the kids were young, I'd always worked from home as much as possible, I explained. Despite James's help, it was a busy life juggling work, household chores, and childcare. I saw Mom working hard every day, discussing complicated matters on the phone. Even if you didn't know she was a CEO, you should have realized she was earning well, Ethan continued. But your mother never gave me an allowance. Chloe protested. That's because you spent your allowance within a week, Ethan countered. Mom would give you more if you explained why you needed it. She thought about you, unlike some people. He then took out his smartphone and showed Chloe a video of me being interviewed on TV. Mom's famous enough to be featured. I thought you came back to take advantage of that. You've always been insolent, even as my younger brother, Chloe said bitterly. When did you ever treat me like a brother? You were hostile just because I was Mom's son, and we're not even blood related. Do you think I would actually listen to my so-called sister? Chloe fell silent, unable to retort, but her eyes still glared at us with resentment. Chloe, I wanted to be your real mother, regardless of the blood connection, but that didn't happen. Now, I don't want to be your mother. In fact, I feel disgusted, I said, trying to contain my emotions. This can't be happening. It's all lies, Chloe exclaimed. Anyway, from now on, we won't help or support you. You're on your own, James stated firmly. With that, we stood up, paid for our meals, and left the restaurant. You've ruined my life, Chloe shouted. That's our line. If only you weren't here, James retorted. As we walked away, we could hear them arguing loudly behind us. After that, James and I safely returned to our new home. The new place has a large garden, and we were discussing how to beautify it together. Despite repeated pleas from the in-laws asking for our new address, we ignored them. Apparently, after we left, Chloe and the in-laws had a huge fight. In response, Cho suddenly said, "Oh, that reminds me, if you can't fulfill your role, you should leave." "What if you leave? I can use your room, and with you gone, it'll be quieter for me to stay at home. So get out." What was she talking about? I almost yelled in response, but then I noticed Grace watching us. I didn't want to show her a scene of arguing with Chloe. Despite my feelings, Chloe smiled triumphantly. "I'll use your room," Chloe said with a sly grin, seeming to relish the moment. Her expression filled me with strong disgust. "Live in the storage room, you terrible wife," she added. As my in-laws joined in to kick me out, I thought we had a good relationship, but in the end, they sided with her. Seeing the in-laws with the same unpleasant smile as Chloe, any familial affection I had vanished, replaced by a strong anger. "Fine, I'll do as you wish." Chloe and my in-laws were delighted with my response. Turning my back on them, I left the house with just the essentials. They needed to be taught a lesson, even if it meant taking them down to rock bottom. The only thing that bothered me was leaving Grace, who cared about me until the end. "Ethan, sorry to bother you so early, but can I come over to your apartment?" I contacted Ethan, then caught a taxi and left our two-family house. "Welcome, Mom. Take your time and relax. Sorry for the sudden visit." Ethan, knowing the situation, warmly welcomed me. "What about Dad? He's coming back home right away." A few hours later, James also returned, joining us. "That Chloe and those two, I won't forgive them." "Calm down. I'm not going to let this go either." And so we started planning our strategy. First, the kids. If things stay this way, Grace and the others will be unhappy. We decided to completely separate Grace and the others from Chloe. "Got it. You don't know anything, right?" "Yeah, I understand." James pretended to be clueless and contacted the in-laws. Ethan and I listened in on speakerphone. Initially wary, the in-laws soon returned to their usual selves, thinking James knew nothing. "Since you're getting along well with Anna, why don't you all go on a spa trip together? I'll send you 3 tickets, so have a good time." James offered them a spa trip. As expected, the in-laws left the house happily, taking Chloe instead of me. Meanwhile, I returned home with James and Ethan. "Aunt Anna, you're back. Sorry for worrying you." "It's all okay now." At home, Grace was there, crying anxiously with her younger siblings. I immediately took steps to protect the children and began gathering their belongings. "Grace, do you know your dad's contact details?" "Yeah, I remember." "Can you call him?" "Yes, I can." Luckily, Grace remembered her father's contact number, so I was able to contact him. Apparently, he comes from a wealthy family and chose to divorce Chloe after learning of her infidelity. Guess a love for money runs in the family. I couldn't help but chuckle at James's remark. By the way, it seems the father had intended to take all the kids, but before any agreement was made, Chloe disappeared with them. He had been searching for them ever since, so when I reached out this time, he was grateful and promptly came to take the children. "Thank you, Aunt Anna, and I'm sorry for all the trouble," said Grace, thanking and apologizing to me multiple times, while happily leaving with her siblings and father. We watched them go with smiles and then got moving. Now there were no regrets left. "Hello. Actually, there's something I need to ask." I contacted a real estate agent while James handled various arrangements and Ethan moved out the belongings. As a result of our coordination, the house was completely emptied. After completing various procedures, we decided to move. "It'll be interesting to see their faces," I said with a laugh, and James and Ethan chuckled along. Not long after, a barrage of calls came from my in-laws. James answered, and the first thing we heard was Chloe's shrill voice. James looked fed up, his face showing clear annoyance as he listened to her rant. In summary, the house was gone, turned into an empty lot. The speakerphone revealed the in-laws demanding explanations and asking about their great-grandchildren. "What's going on?" they asked. "There's nothing going on. That house was bought by Anna, and she's been paying a $4,000 mortgage on it. What she does with it is her business." "What? Dad, you mean the old lady's been paying a $4,000 mortgage?" Joe sounded confused, clearly not expecting James's response or that I was the one paying. "For now, we've sent your belongings to an apartment. You go there," James explained coldly. "We'll have a discussion later at a time and place of our choosing. Stay put until then." With that, he ended the call. "Now the real game begins," he said. A few days later, we met Chloe and her parents at a family restaurant.